Welcome to this channel everyone. Today we are going to discuss about cell signaling. So why do we need to understand this topic? Because you see, cell signaling, or as we term it as cell communication, it is one of the most fundamental subjects of biology. If there is no sort of communication between the cells of your body, then the complex organ system, forget about organ system, the tissues that form our body would have never been completed. Because you see, if each and every cell of your body just starts functioning in a random manner without having any sort of communication between them, so this would create a sort of disaster that may lead you to death. Because you see, if there is no sort of communication, then your digestive system would not function properly, you can't respire as you did previously, and you can understand what I'm trying to explain. So there comes the fundamental approach behind understanding cell signaling. Because talking about evolution of greater organisms, talking about evolution of uh, you know vertebrates and invertebrates, these things would have never been completed if there were no sort of cell signaling or cell communication. And it is not only essential in higher organisms or in complex vertebrates and invertebrates, even the smallest organisms, the unicellular organisms like yeast, you can say. So yeast reproduces through cell signaling. Now you can understand how important the topic is, and that is why we would understand about the entire processes that revolve around the topic cell signaling. So, talking about cell signaling or cell communication, so the cells communicate via extracellular messenger molecules. So, now what are extracellular messenger molecules? You see, there are two types of cells if you want to understand cell signaling. One can be your target cell, another can be your secretory or synthesizing cell, which would create these messenger molecules. So those signaling cells, or the cells which would synthesize these extracellular messenger molecules, so these cells usually synthesize some sort of chemical heterogeneous compounds which are released, and those released compounds, those chemical compounds, are messenger molecules. So what is the role of messenger molecule? The messenger molecules goes to the receptors of the target cells. So now what are target cells? Target cells are those cells which would receive the molecules that are being released by the signaling cells. So this goes to the target cells and binds to the receptors of the target cells, so that another function can be generated in the target cell. And that is the logic behind the entire cell signaling, if you want to understand it in a very very simple manner. So I have made one diagram which you can understand. So you see, there's this signaling cell which is releasing some sort of signaling molecule. So now this signaling molecule is being transported, and it is going to this target cell, where the receptors, the proteins which make up the receptors, are just having these signaling molecules, and then this target cell would generate some sort of response. So that is the basic, you can say, the basic process, if we want to just brief it in 2 or 3 lines. So now let us understand about the signaling molecules. So I would have another dedicated video on signaling molecule, which I'd be releasing tomorrow, I guess. But for the time being, if we want to understand about signaling molecules, so you can say these are heterogeneous compounds. These are not made up from one sort of atoms or molecules. These are made by uh, various sort of molecules, you can say, and hence these are heterogeneous compounds. And signaling molecules are often called as ligands. You may hear about the topic ligand receptor binding process. So ligands are sort of the messenger molecules, as we say this. So this goes to the receptor and binds to it, hence the name ligand. And there is the third point which explain it. So this signaling molecules binds with the receptor proteins of target cells to initiate a specific response. So that is the main function of the signaling molecules. If we want to have some sort of response generated in our body, suppose if there is a pathogenic invasion, suppose if some antigens are invading, suppose a bacterial pathogen has invaded our body, and we want our immune cells to perform against the bacterial pathogen. So some signaling molecules would be released by the antigen presenting cells, which would act upon other T lymphocytes, so that those cells can proliferate and act upon other cells or other bacterial cells which are present in our body. So that is the basic uh, process, as you can say. So this signaling molecules, when released from the signaling cells, bind with target cells to initiate a specific response. So talking about the examples of these signaling cells, you can say this as GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid, and then G proteins, steroid hormones. So you see there's a wide variety of signaling molecules that are being secreted by our body. This can be neurotransmitters such as GABA, and then G proteins, which help in your which binds with GPCR protein and has a lot of physiological roles to do. And then there's your hormones such as steroid hormones, etc. So now let us talk about different types of cell signaling. So talking about the first type of cell signaling, which is your autocrine signaling. So now what is autocrine signaling? Autocrine signaling is a sort of cell signaling in which the cell which produces, so in autocrine signaling, the cell which produces the signaling molecule, so the same cell is being affected by the signaling molecule. So as I've told previously about the example of an bacterial invasion. So when some sort of pathogenic invasion occurs in our body, the T lymphocytes generate a sort of growth factors. So now these growth factors are the signaling molecules, and those growth factors or signaling molecules would act upon the same T lymphocytes, not the exact cell which produces it, but on other T lymphocytes, means the same type of cells, so that the T lymphocytes can proliferate and act upon that bacterial pathogen which has invaded our body. So that is about autocrine signaling. So autocrine signaling means the cell which produces the signaling molecule would be affected by it. Now let us talk about paracrine signaling. Paracrine signaling is a sort of cell signaling where the signaling molecules are being transported for very short distance. Usually the cells in the vicinity of the signaling cells are being affected by the paracrine signaling. So you see these two cells are present very close, and hence the signaling molecules do not need any sort of medium for transport. This can directly act upon the receptors of the target cell. Now let us talk about endocrine signaling. Endocrine signaling, you can relate it with paracrine signaling. It is a sort of cell signaling where the signaling molecules are being transported via bloodstream and acts upon the target cells. So this is the signaling cell. It is releasing this signaling molecule, which is transported via blood and acts upon this receptor on the target cell, which is distantly present. So here in paracrine signaling, these cells are present in the vicinity, whereas in your endocrine signaling, the cells are present far away. So now let us talk about another type of signaling, that is a juxtacrine signaling. So speaking about juxtacrine signaling, this is a type of cell signaling where the cells which produces this, you can say the signaling molecules, so those cells usually binds the signaling molecules with it. So in this above three examples, you see in each and every of the case the signaling molecules are being separated from the signaling cell, but in this case it is not the scenario. Here the signaling cell attaches the signaling molecules, and other cells of the vicinity are acting upon it with receptors. And that is all about juxtacrine signaling. Juxtacrine signaling is a sort of cell signaling where signaling molecules are not exactly released but are synthesized. So if we want to understand about the definitions, so these are the definitions, you can directly read about it and prepare it in your notes.